Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. In October 2022, US President Joe Biden had this to say about Pakistan. He called it one of the most dangerous nations in the world due to the lack of cohesion in its nuclear security and command and control procedures. Now, former US President Barack Obama hinted at this threat way back in 2010. He said the single biggest threat to US security, both short-term, medium-term and long-term, would be the possibility of a terrorist organization obtaining a nuclear weapon. Now, the nation that has both nuclear weapons and a dangerous mix of terrorists was and remains Pakistan. Just yesterday, the Pakistan Taliban kidnapped 18 employees of the Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission. Now, Pakistan is one of the only 9 nuclear-armed nations that has terrorists, the multiple terrorist groups that roam unfettered. It has the world's 6th largest nuclear arsenal, about 170 weapons. But this incident yesterday is possibly the first instance of any country having its nuclear technicians kidnapped by terrorists. How worried should we be? Joining me to discuss this are Dr. Rajiv Nayan of the MP-IDSA, General Sanjay Meston, and of course my colleague Deepak Bhadana. Welcome to the News9 Plus show. Dr. Nayan, I want to start by asking you this. What we're seeing play out in Pakistan over the last couple of hours, it's the stuff of Hollywood movies or paperback thrillers. Terrorists capture a nuclear weapon and they use it against a Western target, or worst case, our cities. How worried should we really be of the developments that are playing out in Pakistan right now? The fact that terrorists are running amok and they're kidnapping nuclear technicians. Are Pakistan's nuclear weapons and its facilities secure?
Look, this is a matter of concern for long. And this is a perennial issue vis-a-vis Pakistani nuclear arsenal or nuclear stockpile. And as you have rightly pointed out, it has been going on for long. And Obama too, before that, when President Bush, and now when Biden, and now once Trump comes to takes over, obviously this will be a question for him also. But unfortunate part is that it is not just Indian problem. It is not just a threat to Indian security or to us. Now, and they are realizing, and they are stating also, they are giving statements that this is a problem which will affect United States of America and other parts of the world also. Yet, they are bluffed by Pakistanis, and now and all, then we hear that there is a contingency plan. Yes. But again, we just get the statements, not by one, but several officials from United States that no nuclear arsenals are safe and secure, so nothing to worry about. And that should worry us. The country which can really influence Pakistan and the Pakistani system establishment is sending mixed signals. And this mixed signal is a problem.
This mixed signal is a problem indeed, Dr. Nayan. And General Meston, again, we've been talking about this for several years now. There have been in the past red flags that have been raised, like Dr. Nayan mentioned, the fact that there have been Pakistani nuclear scientists who've been talking to Al-Qaeda. There have been attacks by the Taliban on Pakistani nuclear facilities about 15 years back. But this represents a new level of threat. The fact that you have Pakistani technicians that are actually kidnapped by them. Do you think this is of enormous concern for us more than the United States? We should be the ones really worried about nuclear technicians being kidnapped by terrorist organizations.
Sandeep, good evening. Very pertinent question asked. Firstly, yes, I would say it is of great concern to India because we are the immediate neighbors. But more than that, also it is of concern to the entire world, especially West. Now, since we are talking about the nuclear weapons of Pakistan falling into terrorist hands, I would go a little step ahead. Who's controlling these terrorists? I think most of the terrorists are controlled, trained by Pakistan. The Pakistan army is involved.
Right.
The ISI is involved, and therefore they are the true, I would say, the handle or the governing structure behind all these Taliban movement. Except, yes, At times, like now they have fissures with TTP, there are fissures with Afghan Taliban, but then there is a Haqqani network, which on date is part of so-called Taliban. They are also in part in the governance, and you are
Right.
aware
Yes.
one of the terrorists, Khaliluddin Haqqani, who
Yes.
was the Minister of Tribal Affairs and Refugees. He was
Yes.
assassinated in December 24. Now, why was he assassinated? This is also a question mark. And then is Sirajuddin Haqqani, who is incidentally the Home Minister, looking after the Afghan internal affairs
Yes.
and internal security. Now, why is the United States? In fact, yesterday only there was a news item that the United States now want to remove Pakistan from
Yes.
the non-NATO alliance partnership. So, therefore, these are issues which are now concerning the Americans also. And
Yes.
President Trump in 2018, I remember when the Doha peace talks were on, he had made a very valid statement. Pakistan is a state which is a state of lies and deceit. This is
Right.
what India has also been telling. So it cannot be
Lies
trusted.
and deceit cannot be trusted indeed. I'm going to come to you with another question, General Meston. But, for the moment, Deepak, you've been studying the ID cards of these technicians who've been captured by the Taliban, Pakistan Taliban. Tell us what we've seen so far, and who are these technicians and what grade in the organization are they?
So to begin with, most of these aren't really scientists. They are technical assistants.
Right.
This is a lower pay grade, probably getting something like 40, 50 grand a month. But there is an important thing here. Most of these people have worked in the organization for at least 6 years, which means that they've had a deep peek into the Pakistani nuclear weapons ecosystem. Now, for those in the know, they would understand that Pakistan has dispersed its weapons.
Right.
These people will therefore, in 6 years, have been posted at multiple places across the nation, and they will know where these weapons are. In fact, there's one gentleman amongst them by the name of Mazullah Khan.
Yes.
His is the only ID card with the tag SPD on it,
Right.
which is the Special Plans Division.
Right.
Now, these
Oh,
people,
Strategic Plans Division.
Strategic Plans Division, my bad. So now these people are highly vetted. These
Yes.
people, most of them come from the Pakistani army, and this is specifically meant to safeguard the Pakistani nuclear weapons. Now, were the wrong people to get hold of these individuals, the kind of intelligence and know-how they would leak out
Yes.
would be devastating, if it were to be put to bad use.
Right, if they're put to bad use. But let's ask Dr. Nayan about the importance of these technicians that you mentioned, Deepak, the 18 people who've been captured by the Pak Taliban, including that one person from the Strategic Plans Division or the SPD. Dr. Nayan, you studied the Pakistan nuclear weapons program very closely. Explain to us what the SPD really is all about and how important would these technicians be for, say, an intelligence organization. If they were to interrogate them, what kind of intelligence would they get about Pakistan's nuclear weapons program?
Look, it is very interesting and hilarious at the same time. If you just read the documents or the statements or the papers issued by Pakistani officials, let me tell, or those who are involved with SPD,
Yes.
they said they'll paint a very comforting picture
Right.
that how they wait, how there are three-layered security, and how this three-layered security is well maintained by Pakistani establishment, especially nuclear security establishment,
Yes.
and all this happened. SPD means second or third layer of security, or the first layer of security where surveillance and intelligence takes place. Means all layers of security may have been breached first. Second, as far as SPD is concerned, SPD is basically the nodal center. There's a National Command Authority and then the Strategic Force Command. So this basically maintains many things. This is where policy making is done. They know about where all facilities are, and they write the language of Pakistani nuclear policy, strategy, everything operational things. So they know everything.
Right.
So as you rightly pointed out, they know. And in fact, a study was made by United States, plus it has somewhat been endorsed by one of the officials who had served on SPD, that there are 15 vulnerable points, means sites, or you can say bunkers, whatever you like to call
Right.
it, which are well established, well known, and all are known by terrorists also. So
Right.
these are the things. And what does it show? that terrorists know who these people are, who these scientists are, who these technicians are. What technician may sound okay, so this is low level, some grand earning individuals,
Right.
but they have got the information. They
Right.
have got the information, as you also pointed out, or your colleague pointed out, and we all know that they have got dispersed nuclear arsenals. There are many bunkers, and it is estimated that they have got around 100 bunkers to somehow escape Indian possible potential attack. And these are the areas of concern, and these areas of concerns are not paid well attention to by the Pakistani establishment.
Right.
They try to console the world that no, everything is under control, it is centralized and nothing will happen. But it shows, and now many reports are coming, and Pakistanis are endorsing.
Yes.
Once you go to the recruitment centers, you will find that slogans, religious slogans, or jihadi kinds of slogans are being raised. They are basically being prepared to fight against India.
Right.
In the process, of see what they are doing.
Yes.
They are just harming themselves. So this network, this relationship has been existing, denied, but has been existing. This is demonstrating the people who know well about
Yes.
all the activities can only do such kind of act, or you can say the kidnapping which we are witnessing.
Yes.
And like frequently their officials are arrested or shown to the world that they were involved with leaking information to jihadi elements. This is not just earlier Basruddin Mahmood or Chaudhry Abdul Majid.
Yes.
Even later, many brigadiers, many people are called. So let us not go by ranks. Let us be alarmed by what is really happening.
Absolutely, and we are alarmed, and the prospect that you mentioned, Dr. Nayan, the fact is that the program, Pakistan's most important strategic program, seems to have been penetrated, as you've red flagged. But General Meston, Pakistan has got a nuclear program that's ever increasing. It's possibly one of the fastest growing nuclear weapons program of any country of its size. And while they're expanding these uranium enrichment infrastructure, and it's got this stockpile, it's creating multiple centers to process plutonium. And as Dr. Nayan mentioned, they've spread these facilities all across the country. As a security professional, do you believe that this increases the vulnerability of these infrastructure, particularly as Dr. Nayan was mentioning, that the fact that the program itself has been penetrated? There are several officials who possibly working hand in glove with the terrorists, and possibly explains why they're being kidnapped now by the busload. Is there some contingency plan that India needs to put into place to factor these kind of threats in?
Yeah, Sandeep. Firstly, I'll just complete my previous statement. So why I was stating that Pakistan Army and ISI controls the terrorist, because
Yes.
obviously they control all the nuclear weapons also, and
Right.
therefore it league with terrorism. Pakistan has always used terrorism as a state policy, as a
Yes.
foreign policy. Now it will also start using nuclear blackmail also as a weapon of foreign policy.
But explain this, General Meston, nuclear blackmail. By nuclear blackmail, you mean that the Pakistan state will say that if you don't pay us XYZ amount,
absolutely,
our nuclear weapons will be taken over. That is something that, it's been spoken about the Pakistan military in the past as well. It's the only military that's holding a gun to its head and says that if you don't give me money, I'll shoot myself. Something of that scenario is what you're painting.
Yeah, they can play both scenarios. One scenario is which you have already highlighted. Second scenario is when Pakistan is, in a verge of collapse.
Yes.
The way it is, economic collapse, and every way they're even being now hit by the Afghan Taliban, TTP. West is cutting off the aid, military funding has been now cut off by America yesterday.
Yes.
Statement. So when they get cornered, what is the last resort? What did Bhutto say? That we will eat even grass, but we'll produce a nuclear weapon. So
Yes.
that is this can be used to demand things from the international community, including India. Ki ye karo, otherwise I will use a nuclear weapon against you. So both options are
Right.
likely.
Right.
And next point is the army also has fissures.
Yes.
I will be surprised that since we are talking about security of these installations, and which you rightly asked, they're also in disposal here. There are fissures within the armed forces, and it can happen. Like for example, a SSG unit led by
Yes.
some Colonel Saab, who's commanding the unit, he just goes, he's not in line with the thinking of the present establishment of like the army chief.
Right.
He can just decide to take over some complex. So
Yes.
any possibility exists in Pakistan, the way it is so unstable. Anything can happen, and therefore, rightly asked, it is a matter of concern for India. Now,
Right.
what contingencies can be drawn? Really, the only contingency is, I would not say contingency, the only preventive methodology is that along with the West, along with NATO, along
Yes.
with all the countries, we have to have a very good understanding of the Pakistan, the systems, the intelligence sharing, because tomorrow it should not happen that at some, time they can use it against anyone, or even
Yes.
just threat, or even a minor small tactical nuclear weapon.
Right.
Because this they are going to use. The way Pakistan today is, it's failing everywhere. It's a failed state. So
Yes.
once you have failed totally, the last resort is I will do anything for my survival.
Right, I'll do anything for my survival, indeed, and that's it's a scarier, prospect of what you've just painted this scenario, General Meston and Dr. Nayan. 9 nuclear-armed states in the world, and only one country where the military directly controls nuclear weapons. Pakistan does have a nuclear command authority of the kind that many other countries have, but this is possibly believed to be the only country where the Pakistan military not only controls the delivery systems and the nuclear warheads, but also could potentially decide when to use these nuclear weapons. And that's something that's illustrated by the use of tactical weapons, which they claim to have fielded. But we've heard in the past of the West coming up with contingency plans. Say, after 9/11, there was this talk of the United States coming up with contingency plans to seize nuclear weapons, Pakistan's nuclear weapons, before rogue actors take it over, terrorist organizations, for instance. The scenario that General Meston points, the fact that if it was willfully doing this, if the Pakistan military was actually complicit in this, it paints a completely different range of possibilities. What is the scenario that you think we should be prepared for?
First, let me comment on American contingency plan.
Yeah.
Like it was talked about after 9/11, which we generally say, September 11, 2001 incidents. And US Congress really grilled the US administration. What will you do with a country, as you rightly pointed out, which really hobnobs with terrorists and jihadi elements?
Right.
And Taliban, of course, was one of its army, you can say, or it's one of its tools.
Right.
So then they told they had plan, and actually they did not spell out. They did not officially put it forward. So what happened? So there were guesses, because they had some contingency plan. SEALs, double SEALs were there. They were prepared for basically Soviet contingency. There was one unit which was prepared for North Korean contingency.
Right.
So on the basis of all the information, there was a speculation in media, in the public domain.
Yes.
And we may have something like that. And especially after Osama bin Laden was killed, and it was talked about what could they do with nuclear weapons if suppose terrorists,
Yes.
the way terrorists are well penetrated in the Pakistani establishment. So it was talked about, but what happened when in around 2015 also, again there was this talk happening there.
Right.
And nothing was revealed. There's just talks. So Pakistan came out with a very strong statement, and that is very interesting. It said
Yes.
that Pakistan is well capable of defending its strategic assets and
Right.
its sovereignty. Means it will fight against America also. That was quite interesting. So, but it could be brave talk. There could be, and what could be this contingency plan involved. So, of course, intelligence will be one element.
Yes.
Second was planes, aircrafts, and many parachutes. So all details came in. So I am not going into details. Now I am coming to the question which you have raised. What should India do? I think we have to have our assets. We too have our information assets,
Right.
especially technical assets. We must somehow focus these assets. And second, about America. America is the most well-equipped country as far information is concerned.
Yes.
And it developed its assets in the sense that information gathering ever since it went nuclear, not just since 1940s, it had tested it. It has got the capability to read cloud and can make an assessment of where all nuclear weapons are headed.
Right.
So that's there. So emission of any nuclear like weapons, uranium can
Yes.
be easily uh, caught by American technical capabilities. But what Pakistanis may be doing, this is what is generally guessed,
Yes.
that they must be suppressing the emission.
Right.
And so, but still there will be many signatures coming out. So we have to work with all the countries, and as General has rightly pointed out, that this is not just Indian problem. Yes, so we are
Yes.
Pakistan's neighbor. But if we see the recent curbs, I have written an article for strategic analysis and IDSA, MP-IDSA, and I said that recent curbs, especially and if you read the entity list on all the organizations put on that, you will find, and the statement, the rationale given by United States, it says that this is a security threat to United States also.
Yes.
Of late, they are realizing. So we have to work with all the like-minded countries, and we have. I hope we will request for United States and other countries.
Absolutely. There's something to talk about with the United States, Dr. Nayan, the fact that strategic cooperation with the US could now possibly extend to these scenarios that you and General Meston have pointed out, all emanating from possibly the world's migraine hotspot, Deepak. Pakistan never ceases to amaze. The scenarios that are coming out of there, literally you're rewriting, crime thriller and Hollywood fiction in our backyard.
The only thing is that the stakes this time are much too high, and the world better pay attention.
Yes, and one just hopes the world pays closer attention to this problem of Pakistan's nuclear weapons, possibility of Pakistan's nuclear weapons being taken over by non-state actors and terrorists. But that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the News 9 Plus show. Larsen & Toubro Chairman S.N. Subramaniam's remarks have triggered off a storm. He's spoken about including 90-hour work weeks and a working Sunday. He's attracted criticism across the spectrum from Deepika Padukone, Harsh Goenka and Jwala Gupta. Now attention has been drawn, of course, to the chairman's 51 crore annual salary. That's a whopping 535 times more than the average Indian employee. But he's not the first corporate honcho to promote long working hours. Infosys CEO Narayan Murthy, Shadi.com CEO Anupam Mittal, Ola CEO Bhavish Agarwal, and even Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk have all been batting for an 80-hour plus work week. Joining me to talk about this is my colleague Karthik Malhotra, Lloyd Mathias. Gentlemen, welcome to the News 9 Plus show. Karthik, what's going on? The boundaries are being pushed. Narayan Murthy comes up with 70 and SNS says, no, it's 90. 90 is the new 70.
See, whatever is going on, Sandeep, is not right. I think
Right.
one can very clearly understand that, at the end of the day, are corporate bosses expected to be slave drivers?
Yes.
Do we have a culture of giving comp off? Do we have a culture of overtime payments? And do we have a culture of, in any case, Indians drawing enough salary
Right.
to be able to have enough domestic help and have enough other avenues open,
Yes.
which can take care of all the other needs that you as a human being, as a citizen need to take care of when you are at work, back at your house. So I think the race for 70 hours, 80 hours, 84 hours, 90 hours, eventually it boils down to one fundamental question, and that question is that corporate bosses are slave drivers, and there is no denying that at the end
Right.
of the day, that Lala mentality from Indian bosses is not going away, and
Right.
that is the unfortunate reality
Right.
that we are
The
living
Lala
in today.
mentality, and this is not the Lala land mentality, but this is the Indian corporate mentality that Karthik's referring to. But Lloyd, Indian CEOs, Indian corporate honchos turning slave drivers, what's the reason for this?
Hey, thanks, Sandeep. I think this is a bit of a generalization, though it's definitely disconcerting that a large corporation like L&T chief manages to say this thing. my point is that this type of recommendation of working for nation building or company building is bunkum and makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
Right? I think large CEOs have to recognize there's life outside of work.
Yes.
More importantly, research shows that increasing work hours beyond a point, and that
Right.
number is definitely well below the 90 that Mr. Subramanian has talked about.
Yes.
It reduces productivity substantially.
Right.
It impairs concentration. It results in burnout. It results in unhealthy lifestyles. I think it's very clear that what everyone needs to do is focus on output, not
Right.
hours.
Absolutely.
And the second aspect is that it is absolutely good and normal for people to have a life outside of work. Time for family, time for kids, time for friends, times for hobbies and interests, and indeed even time for learning, for reading, for upskilling. Right? That's
Yes.
what gets an employee to do his best at work.
Right. Absolutely.
I think the one disturbing aspect I want to also highlight about his comment was a rather misogynistic part when he says that what will you do if you're not at work, right? Stare at your wife. I think it reflects a deeply misogynistic thinking.
Yes.
Are we assuming therefore that women are not going to be part of the workforce?
Yes.
Or, and I mean, there's data to prove, Sandeep, that world over companies have lifted themselves out of the low income into the middle income when there is massive participation of women in the workforce.
Yes.
And this kind of statement by a prominent CEO of a top 10 Indian company, I think is deeply, deeply disturbing.
Deeply
I think,
disturbing
so,
indeed.
and the fact that the PR team has gone out of its way now to defend this,
Yes.
I think in my mind comes as an additional wallop. So I think
Yes,
overall this is
absolutely.
despicable and absolutely shocking.
Absolutely shocking. But Karthik, but as Lloyd mentioned, the fact that do long hours really matter as long as the work is done? It doesn't really matter whether you work 90 hours or 100 hours. You could probably get that job done in 30 or 40 hours.
You're right, Sandeep. I think, this debate on efficiency versus number of hours spent
Right.
in office, inside office, checking in, checking out, the number of hours you're spending, and out of that, some companies even have this bad habit of calculating how many coffee breaks you've taken, how many loo breaks you've taken, how much time you're spending at lunch.
Yes.
I think all of this put together just talks about a mindset of companies really being focused on the letter and the contract and what you're obligated to do in terms of the time you're spending in office as opposed to the output. What are you really generating with whatever time you're spending in office? I mean, there were cases, I remember back in, 20 years back or so, when I had started my career, that there were IT companies at that time and BPOs which were flourishing at that time, where the idea was that employees would actually spend more number of hours in office beyond their shift to actually have their coffee, enjoy an air-conditioned environment, and clock in more hours when there was an overtime available to them.
Yes.
But beyond a point, I think IT companies understood, BPOs, KPOs at that time understood that there have to be targets, and those targets have to be met. How you meet those targets? Managers need to be given that flexibility, employees need to be given that flexibility, and I genuinely believe that as long as you enjoy the workplace, you enjoy the environment you're coming to,
Right.
you have a rapport with your boss has a rapport with you, with the team, work will get done.
Right.
But if you put a gun to somebody's head and say, hey, I need you to do 9 hours a day or I need you to do 12 hours a day, and flouting all sort of labor laws, which in any case are weak in this country, what does it give you at the end of the day? I think it gives you bad press, and rightly so.
Right, bad press and rightly so. And in fact, L&T Lloyd's one of the quietest companies. I mean, they do astounding work, from building temples to nuclear or ballistic missile submarines. But it's the first time that an L&T chairperson has come out, attracted so much of controversy. But what's the general trend in corporate India? Is there a consensus that we need to actually push our employees to work harder? Where is this coming from, really?
Not really, Sandeep. I think the overall trend in corporate India very clearly is recognizing the importance of work-life balance, recognizing that there is a lot of pressure. We are in a
Right.
competitive workplace. In India, for every job, they say there are at least 5 other people in waiting for the job. So it is a competitive workplace. I think work pressures are high, and I think that's understandable. I think though younger people do feel strongly that there is a life outside of work. So while they want to give their best for the 9 hours, they want the promotions, they want rewards, they want bigger salaries, all the rest, they also want to have a life outside of work. And I think a lot of modern day CEOs are recognizing that. If you look at some of the very successful companies, I think they very strongly advocate a 5-day work week. They very strongly advocate that people can't encash their leave, right? There was a time of 20 years ago, as Karthik mentioned,
Yes.
where a lot of us loved the idea of, piling on the leave and encashing it. I think that's no longer looked at as very positively. So overall, I think the trend is towards a far more healthy work-life balance. I know in the case of startups, sometimes founders tend to push people very hard.
Right.
And in that, I would say it partially be overlooked. But when CEOs of large corporations say these things publicly, and these are among India's biggest, I think it's a cause for deep worry. Right, and the fact is, sooner than later, I believe markets have to look at these pronouncements far more seriously. Right? Are we looking at a company that's involved seriously in nation building, that's out to do good, that is now privately practicing a slave-driven culture? I think that, to my mind, is a big worry. And I would say that in markets elsewhere in the world, these things would have a significant ripple. The one is yet to see what their impact is going to be. But I do believe that it's rather surprising that the CEO of a very respectable company to L&T has kind of shot off the hip in this manner.
Right. He's shot off the hip indeed. But Karthik, what kind of damage control has the company been doing after Mr. Subramaniam's comments? How did they justify that? What has he said so far?
I mean, see, so he hasn't come out and spoken, at least not until now, as you and I are having this conversation along with Lloyd. But I think even the statement that the company has released, it's a long statement, it's a page-long statement. And what it's really trying to tell you, the gist of it is that we encourage people bringing passion to the table.
Right.
Right. Beyond that, the company has not specifically commented on this particular conversation that got recorded, got leaked. Just to put some facts on the table, the video is undated. So we really don't know whether this conversation took place yesterday or a week back or a month back or even earlier.
Right.
It seems that it is recent enough because it's digital, it is online, it is post-COVID.
Right.
So I mean, one gets to understand that it is not a very old conversation.
Yes.
But we don't know when this conversation really took place. But I think the point that I want to make at this point is, Sandeep, that, it's not a Gen Z who asked him that question. The designation of the person who's asking this question is Vice President.
Right.
If you look at the video, it is fairly clear that the person is definitely in his 40s, maybe mid-40s or so. So the challenge is not as much about a new generation of employees having a problem with working beyond 5 days a week. This question being asked, that why do you expect us to work on Saturdays, is coming from a seasoned professional. It is coming from somebody who is holding an important designation in that organization. And hence, that question being asked, apparently in a public forum, there are more people apparently on that Zoom call or whatever platform they're having this conversation on, says that there is obviously some sort of a distress in the company that a question like this gets asked.
Right.
And the manner in which, the reply comes, I mean, it is jovial, he's smiling, it seems like there is some sort of a smirk. So even if you're not serious about what you're saying, the fact that this is the top of the mind answer that you have, that I want you to work more, I want you to come 7 days a week, I want you to work on Sundays as well, it should be 90 hours. What are you going to do at home? You'll stare at your wife will stare at you. I mean, it shows that even in a jovial moment, perhaps in a light-hearted conversation, this is the top of mind response of the chairman and CEO of one of the largest infrastructure companies in the country.
Absolutely, and a company that's been involved in nation building,
and that's the second point actually, nation building, and nation building is pretty much being abused, being weaponized, whether it was Mr. Narayan Murthy, and I have a great deal of respect for Mr. Murthy, but I mean, that aside, what he has built India's IT sector among the 5 or 6 companies that were instrumental in building it, but just coaxing, motivating, encouraging, rather pushing employees to contribute to nation building by working more in a private organization, putting in more hours in a private organization, I think just defeats all logic. You're motivating somebody and adding this moral pressure, this obligation that, hey, if you don't work 90 hours a day, as 90 hours a week, 70 hours a week, you don't work 7 days a week, 6 days a week, you're not contributing to nation building. Hey, I'm still contributing because I'm paying my taxes at the end of the day.
I'm paying my taxes, exactly. And, possibly we won't be the 3rd largest economy if you don't work 90 hours a day. Is that sentiment being weaponized, Lloyd? You think the fact that you aren't contributing to nation building if you don't work 70 or 90 hours a day? Look where the Japanese came with hard work, the Germans, of course.
It seems so, Sandeep. I mean, the kind of, with big leaders talking about this, it almost seems like it's the little kind of higher ground they're taking, saying that nation building is important. So I think that's one of the kind of ways they can assuage this whole situation. But like Karthik said, I think it is overstating, right? As a respectable corporate CEO, you have every bit of responsibility to drive output, to make sure that your teams perform well. I think that's fine. But being prescriptive about how you live your life,
Right.
whether you stare at someone outside of work, I think that speaks of, to my mind, far overreach. And when large corporation CEOs say so, people who spend a lifetime in the business,
Right.
forget about their salary and emoluments they draw, I think it's a cause for concern, right? This is not some 25 something, founder CEO who's kind of, said this in a video broadcast to his team, right? Even that is inexcusable, but one would overlook at that. This is a seasoned professional who spent a lifetime in the business, in possibly one of India's largest corporations. I think a lot of very, very worrying signals. The fact that, as Karthik said, even the PR team's long-winded note doesn't seem to suggest any kind of guilt about what he said. It's more about the fact that, yes, the nation building. I think using the nation building card to drive long hours of work is absolutely ridiculous. I think importantly, focus on output, focus on results, absolutely good. Get teams in place, be a right-sized organization. Maybe you need to get more people if you believe that not enough work is happening. But these kind of measures and by respectable business leaders is a very, very bad mark for India Inc.
It's a very, very bad mark for India Inc. Indeed, Lloyd Matthijs, thanks very much for joining us. And of course, Karthik Malhotra, we are talking about how possibly nation building is being weaponized by the corporate sector as they talk about shredding the work-life balance that Indian employees enjoy and possibly working on weekends and Sundays as well. Thank you very much for joining us.